on his way. Devil is on his way. Devil is on his way, motherfucker. The devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way. Fall to your knees. Devil gonna make you pay. Fall to your knees. Devil is on his way.
Mountain Murders is an Appalachian true crime podcast. Some content may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener discretion is advised.
We say fuck a lot. Hey y'all, welcome back to Mountain Murders. I'm Heather.
And I'm Dylan.
How you doing?
I'm a little bit stuffed up.
I think we all are.
It's that time of year.
It definitely is. Our entire household has been hit with the seasonal allergies. And though I do not enjoy the stuffy nose, the runny nose, the slight cough, I am happy to see extended daylight hours, temperatures rising a bit. The flowers are blooming. The little daffodils have popped up.
Oh, I'm so ready for spring this year.
So am I. I just want to be outside.
Oh.
Taking hikes, picnics, just relaxing at the park with a good book.
It's so cute. I want to do all those things with you,
You
baby.
do? You want to frolic in a field of flowers? Wild flowers?
But first, I must thank today's sponsors of this episode.
Please do.
Who they were so graciously donated at Patreon. Kelly and Karen, thank you very much for your support.
They're sponsoring today's episode. It is through the generosity of our patrons that we are able to bring you these in-depth cases each week.
It's true.
I took a little road trip this weekend. I went down around Raleigh Way, North Carolina.
How was it down in the Triangle?
Hectic.
Yeah.
I lived there for some time. I've mentioned that before on the podcast. And the one thing I do not miss is the traffic.
Is it crazy?
Y'all can't drive.
How can't they drive on those flat roads?
Well, I guess their cars did not come with blinkers. And it's just the weaving in and out of traffic. It just seems really crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not the amount of traffic that bothers me, but it's when it's so hectic. People zooming in and out. I mean, just all that's unnecessary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the folks weaving in and out. I mean, it's just dangerous, and you're passing by these horrible accidents. We did get stuck for a period in traffic. Really bad accident. Car just completely smashed up. Really concerned about the driver. I mean, it didn't look like a good outlook from this accident. And just as we're clearing the traffic from the accident, got people zooming around me, probably doing 120.
Yeah,
weaving in and out of traffic. And I was just like, I don't know. I think I'm not cut out to drive in heavy traffic anymore. It's not my bag.
You said you didn't have the emotional fortitude to be a road tripper.
I don't. In my old age, I think I need a driver or I have to stay home. But on the way home, I did stop by Morganton, North Carolina. And if you listen to the podcast regularly, you might recall, I believe it was about this time last year, we had a series on asylums, and we covered the Broughton Hospital. I was actually able to go drive through the campus, boarded up, shuttered buildings. A little creepy, Dylan.
So you said it's still extra creepy around those grounds.
It is.
And you also found something else incredible in Morganton because we've discussed this before. That big old barbecue sandwich.
That was not in Morganton, but thank you.
Oh, shoot. Okay. Well, they have, in my opinion, once you hit Morganton.
I'm like, no, that wasn't barbecue sandwich in Morganton. But
and
okay.
you start getting like the Eastern style.
I had barbecue in Burlington, Dylan.
Oh, wow.
I had to stop by the Smithfield's Chicken and Barbecue. It's a tradition for me. Love that Eastern style North Carolina barbecue with the vinegar base. Smithfield's fast food barbecue, but damn good.
I wish we had one of those.
Man, I would eat the hell out of some Smithfield's. They don't sponsor the show. And I normally get the Hush Puppies. I did not order the Hush Puppies this time around. Instead, I had a big old slice of pecan pie.
Oh, my God.
So I was like trying to drive and eat the pecan pie. Not the safest.
Man, I would trade out any fast food place near me for a place like that.
I just love pecan pie.
Yeah, if I can get pecan pie and barbecue, I mean, come on.
Yeah, I love all different types of barbecue. I know there are a lot of folks out there who have their personal preference. They like the Memphis or the Texas style or the Eastern or, I mean, there's all sorts of Memphis style, whatever. I kind of like all of the barbecues.
Oh yeah, definitely. You got, the Texas has a certain way, Memphis, Kansas City, all that. But yeah, I like all the different types. But I really like the vinegar base because it kind of just soaks it up into the meat.
Yeah, it does. It's got a lot of
Yes.
flavor. I love anything that has vinegar. I really love pickled foods. I love that sour, bitter taste of anything that's, vinegar soaked.
Oh my God! Can I take just a moment? This is going to surprise many of our listeners. I made a incorrect statement on our midweek episode.
Dylan, a source of misinformation?
I know.
No way.
I know people right now are having to pull over, consult friends on the phone. Like, I can't believe this is
They're getting
happening.
the Vipers.
In our midweek episode, we were talking about the death penalty and pharmaceutical companies, and I stated that Pfizer was the inventor of OxyContin and that blah, 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 the whole thing that's happened with OxyContin. It was actually Purdue. And one of our incredible listeners,
Actually, several of our listeners.
everybody but me, pointed that out. But, hey, let's be honest, Pfizer's some shit too. But it was Purdue Pharmaceuticals that created OxyContin, and it was the whatever, Sanderson families or whatever the hell their name was. They're assholes.
Okay. Well,
But
thank
I was
you-
wrong.
Thank you for correcting your misinformation, Dylan.
It was Purdue, not Pfizer.
You're going to be suspended for violating community standards and sharing fake news. And I'm the one that makes those decisions, so.
I feel like everything I say comes with a disclaimer.
It's true. I mean, well, I think people who regularly listen to the show know that you're about 80% full of shit, and 20% of the time you might know what you're talking about, but that's what they love about you, Dylan.
Oh,
You're like that uncle who he don't know what the fuck he's talking about, but always shares his opinion at the family dinner.
and he's fun to be
And
around.
he's fun to be around.
I'm not touchy uncle.
He might drink a little bit. No, you're just you grab your wife a little bit, but that's about it.
Okay.
You're very appropriate with other people.
So in the absence of any other mind-boggling true crime news, what do you have for us today?
Oh, Dylan, I have a story that has fascinated me for some years. It is a wild tale. I am surprised Hollywood has not come a knocking for this story. It could be a movie.
Oh,
All right.
okay. I love these kind.
And it has the gritty vibes. Like when I think of this crime, I think of like the Wonderland murders, just gritty 70s, maybe a little sleazy. I kind of like that. I like to get down in the trenches.
Well, that's a good description. The Wonderland Murders. It had a very sleazy vibe to it. John Holmes is kind of sleazy. Let's be honest.
So today we might bring some of that sleaze along, and I use that as a very affectionate term because I like sleaze.
Oh,
right?
I can be sleazy with the best of them. You better believe that.
Yeah. And so if you are involved in a motorcycle gang, club, maybe you hang out with bikers, don't be offended because that shit's cool as hell, right?
Oh, I think most people a lot of times are just kind of fascinated by the bike culture, and I mean like bike.
Oh, I'm absolutely
Biker
fascinated.
club, a real biker gang. No offense to anyone who loves to ride bikes, but like these people do not
We're
play
talking
around.
about like the one percenters.
Yeah, we're talking about people who, in one of our earlier episodes, murder. It was
It was like the motorcycle mineshaft murders.
yes.
It was a two-parter. We covered that some years ago, back when our audio equipment was maybe not so supreme. I would really like to revisit that case one day, Dawn.
Yeah, I'm just fascinated because there's a lot of these guys don't play around.
Yeah, you don't fuck with these folks. Which brings us to today's case, Dylan. Let's get started. I'm going to give you a little, I guess, I'm going to preface this with, you might feel the story is a little disconjointed, but I'm going to try to bring it all around. There's just a lot of information, and I want to give everyone, because I like the history. I like to set the scene. So I may be kind of jumping around with some different pieces of information, but in the end, it's all going to come together. So bear with me.
We trust you, Heather.
Okay. In the 1970s, Charlotte, North Carolina was a hub for several motorcycle gangs. As the decade progressed, the Hells Angels and the Outlaws absorbed some of the smaller bandit biker clubs in the region. The gangs were fueled by drugs, prostitution, and violence. Now, Dylan, you grew up not necessarily in the Charlotte area, but Shelby, which is basically like a suburb. A lot of folks live in Shelby, commute to Charlotte.
In a way, yes.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, it's kind of it's the same sort of area there within about a 30-mile radius, right? Some of these biker clubs, the smaller ones, were in Gastonia,
Oh, wow.
Shelby, North Carolina. And your mom knew some bikers growing up, right?
My
When
mom,
you were younger.
yes, I remember maybe not when she was doing it, but she told me later, I had these group of friends. They were bikers, like the real deal kind of bikers. And she quit hanging out with them because they were a little too wild for her.
Right.
And these people are just really like, you'd be hanging out with her and a couple of her girlfriends. And like one of the dudes would come through and smack his old lady through the face and throw her a cloth and tell her to get out there and shine all the chrome on his hog and like at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and she'd do it or else. And I mean these were some rough characters, certainly.
Yeah. So the Outlaws were formed in McCook, Illinois in 1935. It is considered one of the largest outlaw motorcycle clubs in the world and is a longtime rival of the Hells Angels. A phrase used by outlaw members is adios, which means angels die in outlaw states.
Oh, that is a great acronym.
You may recall some of this from our previous episode about the mineshaft murders, but I thought, hey, why not refresh everyone's memory? Now, at the time of the club's creation, their activities were limited, but by the 1950s, just after World War II, they began pursuing illegal money-making opportunities. A string of massage parlors lined Wilkinson Boulevard near the Charlotte airport, which were fronts for prostitution. There were probably more than a dozen murders in Mecklenburg and Gaston County tied to the two gangs, but there was little being done to bring down the criminal enterprises at the time. They dealt in wholesale narcotics such as PCP, cocaine, and methamphetamine. Midway between Canada, chemists had markets in Miami, and so Charlotte was a key way to bring the drugs from the Canadian chemists down to Florida. They would stop off in Charlotte. So it was viewed almost as like a pipeline for designer drugs at the time.
Well, yeah, and no different than the location of Atlanta, which happens commonly a lot in Atlanta with various drugs. Charlotte is just like kind of a hub. If you look on the map, you come all the way down the East Coast, and then that kind of branches out. You have highways going various directions away from Charlotte, north, south, east, west, and that makes sense.
It is said that eventually the Outlaws and other gangs had to ban the use of PCP by club members because of the violence associated with the drug.
PCP is very scary.
I don't know a whole lot about PCP, but the few things I do know, it doesn't sound good.
No, I mean, you're talking a full-on breaks from reality. You have, we've all grown up hearing the stories. People thought they could fly jumping off of a building, killing themselves by accident, I guess you could say. There was that rapper.
Big Lurch,
who really liked to use PCP and ended up committing some just heinous, brutal crimes.
Like cannibalizing his roommate type of thing.
So I think, I don't know much about it. I've never even seen it in person, but it just sounds very scary. So that makes sense that, hey, we might be selling this stuff to the public, but you guys got to quit using it. And it's like they say, don't get high on your own supply.
There you go. Fear was the main weapon in the Outlaws' arsenal. According to a newspaper report by the Charlotte Observer in 1979, the message to would-be watchers of the gang was, quote, "Don't mess with them or you'll be sorry."
And that sounds like that's a accurate description.
Like, you did not want to fuck with the Outlaws. On Moorhead Street in Charlotte, several outlaws would hang out around some of the garages and various businesses there. On more than one occasion, gang members would be, like, maybe, for example, watering a lawn when a Charlotte businessman happened to drive by, maybe got caught at a red light, had a window down, and the biker gang would come over and spray this businessman in the face, right, with a water hose, as if daring him to say something. There would be like 6 or 7 bikers standing around. So, of course, no one's going to jump out of their car to handle this situation.
No, you're totally intimidated, and here you have this stranger, and they're viewing him as a square, a citizen, if you will, and they're just fucking with him. You know what I mean? Just for amusement.
Like die uppy scum.
Yeah,
kinda
but
shit.
I could just picture this in my head. You got these bald headed, bearded, kind of scary guys.
Maybe big bellied bikers
Yeah.
wearing their leather vests.
Yeah,
Yeah, tatted up.
and most people are just going to drive away wet without saying anything because they would beat the living hell out of you if you were to get
Some
out of
big
your
old
car.
husky men, broad shouldered and
Yeah,
6'5", intimidating.
I got a picture of Opie in my head.
That's
right
exactly
now.
what I'm thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, he just nailed that look. He's a big guy.
I'm thinking of Opie and my aunt's husband,
Okay.
my Uncle Travis. He totally had that. He had that look, and he was a biker. Now,
my
he was
God.
never associated, as far as I know, with like gang activity. I mean, he may have been. Who knows? But he rocked that look for a long time.
You're hot. You and various other people out there listening right now are hot for Opie right now.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. He was fucking hot.
Well, I got to say, he was killing it.
He tore me up.
And he was, as a heterosexual man, I'm comfortable saying that he was an attractive man in that character.
Jax was a beautiful man as well.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm not typically attracted to blonde men.
But you know what? Opie really, I believed it, that he's really this big biker dude.
Yeah.
More so than Jax. Jax is too
Yeah.
pretty.
I get that.
Oh, let's get off Opie.
Okay. I'd like to get on Opie.
Oh
Okay,
my
moving along.
God.
Now, most of the men in the gang or the club, because I guess some bikers find it offensive when you say it's a biker gang.
Yeah,
They're
they'd
like, it is a club.
they prefer the term club.
Yeah, so I don't mean to be offensive, but I mean, let's face it, this is like gang-like activity
What's this criminal syndicate?
that they're participating in. They didn't work. They would get their old ladies, which is, I find that to be a derogatory term, but some people like to be called an old lady.
Yeah, it's OLE, correct?
An old lady.
Old lady. A lot of
Yeah.
people think you're saying old lady with a D. But yeah, some people, some women viewed as an affectionate. You hear that commonly in our area. Someone say, "Oh, my old lady" or "my old man."
Yeah, we hear that a lot.
Yep.
So they would get their old ladies to take care of them by forcing these women to work as prostitutes in the massage parlors or walk the streets.
Okay.
The men acted as their pimps in essence. In the 1970s, there were about 30 members of the Outlaw Motorcycle Club living in Charlotte and Lexington, North Carolina. So during a period, Gastonia also had a bunch of those smaller clubs, as I mentioned before, the Tar Heel Stompers, Southern Gentlemen, the Pagans, the Knights, and the Diablos, and there were a few others. I actually knew a guy who was in the Southern Gentlemen.
Really?
Yeah, it's kind of I mean, I know I'm getting off on a tangent here. It's kind of I guess, a strange story. My son's father worked for AT&T doing like cable lines. He was a lineman and did a lot of work with that for a period and met a fellow who was a former member of the Southern Gentlemen and was a reformed white supremacist.
Oh, he's just trying to do better.
But he had some very offensive tattoos, right? But he explained to us that he got a fire in his heart for Jesus and changed his ways.
Okay.
So we were like, good on you, right? He was a nice enough guy. Now, at first I was a little like, oh, I don't know about this. But, we hung out with him a time or two, just dinner, that kind of thing. And he was really interesting. He had some wild ass stories.
Oh, I guarantee
so unbelievable you almost have to believe them because you're like, who could even like make some shit like this up, right? But yeah, they were into some not good things from what I gather.
Okay.
But many of those clubs were absorbed by the bigger clubs.
And I think that's typical.
Kind of got like meted out, if you will.
Yeah, that's typical. No, once the big guys, the big boys come in, you either join them or they run you off because on some even on minor scale, these clubs are typically, selling a little pot, a little cocaine here, or even just, they don't want you to have the look around them if you're either with them or against them kind of thing, I think.
Right.
Even if you're just hanging out drinking beer with your buddies. We actually had a motorcycle club here in Waynesville, and they thought they were tough guys. But I've talked about this before, but I won't relive it. But they weren't.
Biscuit and Stitch.
Biscuit and Stitch. pulled up an 83 Honda. I'm like, what? With full on, leathers on and shit. And I'm like, okay, dude, calm down. But anyway, yeah, so they're not going to stand for you even riding around unless you either toe the line for them or go away. Or they're going to kick your ass.
Yeah.
Burn your clubhouse up. This is a type of intimidation tactics they use.
Oh, let's get into it, Dylan. In 1976, the gang's Lexington headquarters, which was located in an old farmhouse, was firebombed. Police think it was by a rival gang. The state headquarters then moved to a fortress, as it was described, in Love Valley, a rural area north of Statesville. By the late 1970s, police files on the Outlaws were scant. Some of the best information police were able to gather came from an informant, a High Point dentist named Dr. John Andrews Jr., who went undercover. And I would like to know more details about that story, but I just couldn't find more information. So I'm not sure if he got busted for something and then agreed to go undercover, or I don't know, maybe he was just doing dental work and they just told him a lot of what they were doing. I have no idea. But his help led to several convictions for auto and boat theft in the Winston-Salem area.
Wow.
Andrews reported to police that the gang members were, quote, physically dirty and were obsessed with proving their masculinity by fighting, sexually abusing their girlfriends, and comparing notes on crimes.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you tried to imagine the hyper or the craziest version of toxic masculinity, I think this is where you find it at.
Yeah.
Nothing healthy about it. Women are not going to be viewed in any kind of an equal role, or we don't care what you think. We don't need your input. You'll do what I tell you. And yeah, I mean, I just couldn't imagine trying to survive in a group of people like this.
That would never work for me.
No.
Even though I'm kind of, I guess, attracted to the lifestyle and on the road and a bike. I mean, I would love to have a motorcycle. It just seems like, wow, this is fucking cool, right?
Oh my God.
But I could never be in a situation where I'm too mouthy.
Well, I was going to say,
I would end up dead in a ditch somewhere.
You couldn't hold your tongue.
Law enforcement officials were first acquainted with the Outlaws in July of 1973 when 22-year-old member Arthur Snake Knipe was shot to death during an argument with a convicted drug dealer named William Logan. Knipe was out on bond at the time, having been charged with the armed robbery of a drugstore. Nearly 800 Outlaw members from across the country rode into Charlotte to attend his funeral. I'm sorry, I apologize if you can hear noise in the background. We have a house full of kids. July 4th of 1979 was a Wednesday. As Americans geared up to celebrate the Independence Day holiday, Charlotte police were called to a crime scene. Inside a filthy house located at 2500 Allen Road South was one of the worst mass killings in the city's history.
Oh my God.
As you can imagine, it was quite a spectacle for most of Charlotte's population to see 800 bikers rolling into their city.
Oh my God. That's a lot of bikes.
A lot of bikes.
Yeah.
People were kind of freaking the fuck out because they didn't really know what to expect from these bikers. Of course, they're attending a funeral, but when you get that many bikers together, you've got the other gangs in town, anything could happen.
Well, yeah, even if it's just a group of friends, 10 or 20 deep on, their Harleys or their bikes, whatever their preference is, it's a spectacle. People look and see and oh, hell,
loud pipes.
What's going on?
Leather-clad men. Hey.
Yes,
yeah.
They smell.
Not all of them. That's a snap judgment, Dylan.
I'm just kidding. I don't want any retribution from any biker clubs.
Yeah, some biker's going to knock on the damn door, scare the shit out of us, and then be like, smell my armpit. It smells like Old Spice lavender.
I'll be like, oh my God, do you use essential oils?
Yes.
And I would be drawn in close to him.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can just sniff his neck like Joe Biden style.
Yeah, and then I can get on the back and I can have stickers on the back of my hat that's my helmet. Yeah.
That says your hat. This is like biker bitch.
No, say if you can read this, the bitch fell off.
Yeah. I've seen those. Okay.
And I would be the one riding bitch.
Yes. July 4th of 1979 was a Wednesday. As Americans were gearing up to celebrate the Independence Day holiday, Charlotte police were called to a crime scene. Inside a filthy house at 2500 Allen Road South was the worst mass killing in the city's history.
Oh my God.
Around 5:30 a.m., outlaw leader William Chains Flamont rode up to the clubhouse and discovered a literal slaughter. I love that they all have nicknames too.
Oh, they have the best nicknames. I think Chains is a great one. That reminds me of the Brian Bosworth boxer movie Stone Cold.
The four-room clubhouse was surrounded by law enforcement with patrol cars jammed up and down the street. On the front porch was 22-year-old William Waterhead Allen.
Oh my God.
He was reclining in a chair with a Pabst Blue Ribbon by his side. One leg was propped up and a .38 caliber pistol sat in his lap. Waterhead had been on guard duty. The young man had been shot in the chest with such force, the Marlboro pack in his shirt pocket was blown out.
Wow.
Allen had dropped out of Garinger High School a few years earlier, but earned a GED at Central Piedmont College. Otherwise, I don't know a whole lot about him. That was a bit of information I was able to find. Inside the doorway was William Mouse Dronenberg. He was a 32-year-old tattoo artist for the club. Though he was sprawled on the floor, his legs were wrapped in blankets positioned on the couch. So halfway, kind of in the doorway, but still slightly on the couch. There was a gun nearby. On the sofa was 17-year-old Bridget Midget Benfield, who was a few months shy of her 18th birthday. Benfield was a runaway who had been gone from her Gaston County home for only a few months. Bridget was reportedly becoming a biker woman, also known as an old lady. She had recently begun a relationship with Terrible Terry Henderson, whose real name is actually Leonard.
Can I say these are some of the greatest nicknames? And this is a horrible scene you're describing too,
Yes.
by the way, of course. But these are some of the greatest nicknames I've ever heard in my life.
Friends described Benfield as quiet but friendly, and she had dropped out of Mount Holly Junior High School like about 3 years before the murder. Beside her was 29-year-old Leonard Terrible Terry Henderson, who was also next to an unfired gun. On another couch was 28-year-old Randall Fiesel, who had bullet holes from legs to face. Just horrible.
Yeah, so, they were obviously... Okay, so I'm Dastardly Dylan, and you're Horrible Heather
Okay.
for the rest of this episode. Does that work?
Can I be like, I want to be something else.
What do you want to be? Give it to
I
yourself.
want to be the Harlot Heather.
Harlot Heather?
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're still thinking about Opie.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Okay, can't help myself. One detective told newspaper reporters, quote, "You've heard of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre? Well, this is the 4th of July Massacre."
Wow, and that's a really big reference they're making there.
Police recovered around 30 shell casings off the floor. Throughout the morning, other members of the Outlaws came to the house to talk to police. Inside the home, the telephone rang constantly. At one point, 2 gang members rolled up in a van. Officers scribbled down the license plate number and confiscated a loaded shotgun, some pistols, and a knife from the back of that vehicle. About 6 young women in their early 20s walked in and out of the house at different times, each leaving in tears. It was around 11 a.m. that the bodies were finally wrapped in blood-stained sheets and were lifted aboard and taken to the county morgue. So it's quite a scene. Police are there trying to investigate, secure the crime scene, but you have all the gang members rolling up. You have women walking in and around the crime scene. So already you're getting some contamination.
Well, yeah, it sounds like as the news gets out, it's back in the day, it would take a minute for people to call each other and tell them what's happened. People were flooding to the scene
Yes.
to see what happened. And it sounds to me almost like these investigators are already kind of overwhelmed.
Yeah, absolutely, Dylan.
And that's
Plus,
not their fault.
At this time, we also have to consider the lack of forensic ability or capabilities.
The mindset.
An hour later, officers carried out rifles, shotguns, and a machine gun from the house.
Wow.
They were loaded to the gills in this house. Neighbors described the gang as having moved into the property about a year earlier and brought no trouble with them. They were often seen working out of a big building in the back where they'd pull motorcycles kind of in and out. Sometimes they would ride them up and down the road as if they were testing them for sound mechanical work. Most people thought they were just guys who rode bikes on the weekends, not ever really knowing it was a motorcycle clubhouse.
Yeah, so it sounds like they, even though these are a wild bunch of guys and girls, they're trying to keep it low key at their home base.
People saw big bonfires in the backyard, back of the house, kind of late at night, even in the winter while they partied. But the neighbors said, it was never really hell-raising, fighting, that kind of thing. And one neighbor said, quote, and I thought this was funny, "I just thought those jokers were used to the cold weather."
Yeah. That's great.
I know, right? Charlotte detective Ron Garrett was assigned to the case. Now, in the beginning, the Charlotte Police Department had about 6 detectives assigned to this case, but after weeks went by with no significant leads, Garrett was left working the case alone. Police would later say they had leads coming out of their ears, but the case just went cold quickly. Everybody's calling with a tip, but it's just not going anywhere. Nothing's panning out. Nothing solid. Mostly just speculation.
Yeah, and they're probably trying to run anything they think's a really valid lead, trying to run it down. But there's probably no task force. There's no extra resources to investigate this crime. And like you said, you have this very multiple murders in a house like that to this degree with guns. It's just, it'd be hard to figure out exactly what happened. Because you got to wonder yourself, all these guys are loaded for bear with the weapons, literally have guns sitting in their laps or beside them, but they've all been massacred at the same time. So that's very strange. Obviously, they were surprised.
Forensics determined a .223 caliber semi-automatic rifle and a 9mm pistol were used during the attack. But they also determined that Flamont's 30 Shot Mini 14, which I guess is a replica of an M16.
Okay.
That the military would use, was also used as a murder weapon. He often left it around the clubhouse, just kind of laying around, so anybody could have picked it up. Police speculated there were at least 2 killers who somehow managed to creep onto the side porch of the house without disturbing the 3 to 4 guard dogs chained up in the backyard.
Oh, but those dogs are badasses.
From the sounds of it, I would not want to fuck with these
Yeah,
dogs.
like Doberman, Rottweilers, Pit Bulls, whatever.
Probably, yeah. Whatever, they had jaws of death. William Allen, Waterhead, was wearing a cast on his left leg from a recent motorcycle accident. In the early morning hours, he had been guarding the clubhouse, as I mentioned, and it appeared as though the killers aimed their weapons into the house sometime between midnight and 4:30 a.m. Allen had fallen asleep with that pistol in his lap, and the killers fired 1 or 2 single shots first, then opened a burst of rapid gunfire into the house, followed by maybe 1 or 2 trailing shots, according to a neighbor who heard the commotion. Aside from the shell casings, police had no other physical evidence to work with. What law enforcement officials discovered was that Bridget Benfield was girlfriend to Terrible Terry, who was a top enforcer for the club. Fiesel had met Dronenberg, the tattoo artist, just the night before and needed a place to crash overnight.
Oh, my gosh.
So he didn't even know these people. He was not associated with this club. Literally met this guy in a bar. They kind of hit it off, and he mentioned, I need to find a motel. And then they're like, oh, just come stay at our house.
Yeah, come stay at our clubhouse. It'll be safe.
No affiliation with the club. It actually took a while to identify Fiesel because they had used dental records because no one knew who he was. None of the other outlaws could identify this guy.
Yeah, so there's just a stranger here. They have no idea who this guy is.
After the assault on the Outlaw clubhouse, the gangs began creating these armed camps equipped with weapons. The Charlotte Outlaws outfitted their clubhouse with a closed security TV system to record. Members of both the Outlaws and Hell's Angels began carrying weapons just to run errands. After the so-called 4th of July massacre, according to an informant, Hell's Angels braced for retaliation. Chapters in Charlotte, Winston-Salem, and Durham were among the most heavily armed. According to one report, the Charlotte's Hells Angels were ready to die in a war zone.
Oh my gosh.
And this sounds really scary to think this could be happening in your neighborhood.
Well, yeah, you got these. It's gangland violence.
Yes.
It's no different than any other neighborhood or any other gangs in the nation.
Exactly.
It's very scary.
It was a matter of extreme pride for the Angels to maintain a chapter in Charlotte, no matter the cost. Out-of-state charters began sending in members to help with security. In an ATF report, Michael Thunder Finazzo, president of the Charlotte chapter, was chief source of the gang's weapons. Somehow, Finazzo had a connection to the military and was able to get weapons, which he sold to members at cost. The Durham chapter was said to have a .50 caliber machine gun that they purchased from the Bridgeport, Connecticut chapter.
Oh my God.
These are like, this is a fucking, they got ordnance, man.
Well,
this is crazy.
And this from a law enforcement perspective, these guys you're heavily outgunned. This is before we started militarizing our local police departments, unfortunately. But so I guess the cops are kind of just in the wings, waiting to see what happens next. But at the same time, they've got to be intimidated to a degree. Like, what can we do about it? Because the best we might have is a pistol and a shotgun and maybe a rifle. And these guys got full-on military machine guns and explosives, likely.
Oh, I absolutely agree, though I don't like militarizing the police force.
But I'd also wouldn't like these groups of people in my community that are armed like this. This is a very scary situation.
Okay.
Would you agree? Would you not agree?
It was known among the law enforcement community that when a gang member is killed by inter-gang violence, the case is rarely solved. Now, this is mostly due to the unwritten code of the biker world. Gang members are unlikely to report crimes committed against them. Their disdain for law enforcement also includes courtrooms. Instead of seeking justice, they seek revenge.
Yeah, they don't need any help.
One example was in June of 1972 when a van carrying 6 members of the Pagans Motorcycle Club from Florida and a pagan associate was ambushed on I-85 near Durham, North Carolina. 2 were killed in hail of at least 34 bullets. 6 members of Durham's Stormtroopers gang, which became Hells Angels, were charged with the murders, but none of the surviving pagans would return to give evidence, and eventually the charges were dropped. Pagan leader Mike Grayson would later comment, "Every dog has its day."
Oh my God.
3 Hells Angels were killed on December 15th of 1980 while riding near Lexington, North Carolina, where this was actually like an outlaw stronghold. Frank Boots Spell was wounded during the shooting but never reported it to police. Frontier justice, or what we mountain folks in Appalachia call mountain justice, is just the basic biker ethic. Payback's a bitch.
Well, yeah, they don't. These guys are alpha males. They don't feel like they need any help resolving this, and that's the scary part of gangland violence. It just doesn't. It keeps going, self perpetuates itself. They're not going to turn to authorities for help. They'll handle it themselves. And what really scares me about these types of people is the fact they will shoot their guns or they will commit violence anywhere. If they see their enemy, they see an opportunity, they will attack. And the fact that bystanders, kids, women, whoever are around, it does not matter in the least to them.
God forgives, outlaws don't.
Wow, I'm going to make some t-shirts.
In Charlotte, around the time of the killings and in the aftermath, attacks between Hells Angels and outlaws were common, and only a fatal skirmish might catch attention of law enforcement. In late May of 1980, 2 outlaws fought with employees of Comfort and Conversation.
Wow.
And this is a business spelled with K's, right?
Wow, I wonder what they do there.
It's an escort service that was located on Old Statesville Road. An outlaw woman named Kimberly McWhorter went to work at the service and found several Hells Angels women working there. A shouting match ensued, so McWhorter called the local Outlaws president for backup because she felt outnumbered. No employees reported the incident, and K&K's owner later told reporters whatever happened was settled. Or was it?
Yeah, but he's not going to get in that mess.
Well, it was actually a woman.
I'm sorry.
That owned. Yeah, nice to assume. Okay, we've got a madam here, Dylan.
So was she what is it? A soiled pigeon?
Soiled dove.
It's old dirty pigeon.
It's a soiled dove.
No, so she's mum's the word because she knows that, she could get in trouble if she gives any evidence or cooperates with authorities.
So she thought it was settled. A few months later in July, a bomb blew a hole in the wall at the K&K offices, causing about $10,000 in damages.
Oh, my God.
Police suspected it was members of the Outlaws, but no arrests were ever made. So this is the kind of shit you got going, just popping off all over town.
Blowing up cars, blowing up escort services.
Now let's get back to the massacre. So some theories about the massacre surfaced. When the markets in sex and drugs are threatened, gang members will take drastic steps. It seemed there was almost a full-scale war breaking out over who controlled the Miracle Mile, which is Wilkinson Boulevard. That was what it was known for, right? The Miracle Mile, because of its massage parlors, and we use that term very loosely.
Man, I guess everybody down there had their muscles were really relaxed, and everyone felt pretty good. All these massages going on.
I could go for a good massage about right now.
A real massage?
What do you mean a real massage?
Well, I'm saying like a therapeutic massage.
Like a relaxing therapy. Yeah. Well,
Hot
isn't that what
stones.
these folks were offering?
Well, of course. That's why they're typically near the airport and all.
All sorts of relaxation.
Yeah, businessmen need lots of massages.
Investigators began looking into the previous night's activities, which they concluded that the victims had been out until sometime after midnight and were likely killed in their sleep. Authorities would later report the autopsy showed no signs of drugs or alcohol in the victims. They were so riddled by bullets that the medical examiner just sort of gave up counting the bullet holes.
Good Lord.
Exactly. Flamont told police he suspected the Hells Angels were behind the vicious killings. They were engaged in this territorial dispute with the Outlaws. No one could figure out how the intruders got past the fortress. I mean, there was an 8-foot-tall fence, and again, 3 to 4 vicious dogs.
And CCTV.
Well, no, at that point they didn't have the CCTV. They
Okay.
installed that. That was an afterthought.
Oh, okay. So originally there was 8-foot fence and multiple guard dogs and sentries. People literally on duty.
Guard, yeah.
But then when the sentry falls asleep, which can happen.
Though some members and witnesses were reticent to talk to investigators about the massacre, detectives were able to piece together a timeline and potential persons of interest. Which brings us to Gregory Scott Lindemann, known as Angel or Teen Angel.
Teen Angel?
Now, he had grown up in the Charlotte area, graduating from Independence High School in 1974. While he was a young man or a young boy, he raced dirt bikes, and by the time he was a teenager, had become a motorcycle enthusiast. Lindemann could take apart a bike and reassemble it with ease. He was just known for being really talented with bikes. Lindemann had attempted to join the Outlaws, becoming a prospect. However, his attitude left little to desire. Lindemann was called a loudmouth who liked to brag about his exploits, and the Outlaws liked to keep things on the down low. He wasn't disciplined and considered insubordinate. Detective Garrett said Lindemann could piss off the Pope.
So he didn't have the great attitude to be a prospect.
Just one of those people that he can rub anybody the wrong way.
Yeah, and it's no different than likely rushing a fraternity.
Loud, obnoxious, braggadocious, basically you, Dylan.
You need to do what you're told, keep a low profile, and don't try to be the shiny penny.
Oh no.
Right.
Especially when you're just, you're like the trainee.
Right.
Lindemann and Terrible Terry butted heads before the Outlaws ultimately decided to kick Angel, Lindemann basically, out of club activities. So apparently Lindemann did not take this well. Fingers were pointed in his direction. Law enforcement wanted to speak to him about the murders, but he had immediately left for San Bernardino, California after this 4th of July massacre.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Lindemann's friend Randy Pigg was also a person of interest. Now, Pigg had no involvement directly with the Outlaws, but was a well-known associate of Lindemann. Charlotte law enforcement had to track down Lindemann in California. He had an arrest warrant for his involvement in another murder, so they were able to extradite him.
Wow, it sounds like this guy is up to no good.
So let's talk about the arrest warrant. Back in December of 1978, Lindemann allegedly shot and killed a 28-year-old man named Larry Popeye Presley at Trader Den's. I will get this out, okay? I'm so excited. Trader Den's Lounge, which was near Mount Holly and Huntersville Road. Presley was a former member of the Tar Heel Stomper Motorcycle Club. Detectives firmly believed that Lindemann and Pigg were involved in the massacre as a retaliation against Terrible Terry Henderson. It appeared that the other victims were basically in the wrong place at the wrong time, like collateral damage, yet they didn't have enough evidence to arrest either man. Everything they had was just circumstantial at the time. They knew it was just not enough to take to trial.
Yeah, you're going to need a pretty solid evidence and a solid case in a situation like this, because you have so many people, he said, she said, that kind of thing.
Exactly. Detective Garrett gathered a few pieces of information. First, the clubhouse was understaffed at the time. 2 enforcers, Trip Lowry and Tommy Stroud, were in jail on motorcycle theft charges. So this left the clubhouse wide open for attack. Interestingly, Stroud was the son of a Charlotte police captain, and he was later killed by rival bikers in 1981.
Wow.
Waterhead, or William Allen, had a broken leg, as I mentioned before, and he was taking pain medications, which likely led him to falling asleep while on watch. Police felt these separate incidences kind of led to this clubhouse being ripe for the picking, for lack of a better word. Eventually, the charges against Lindemann were dropped when witnesses expressed the killing of Presley had been in self-defense. As the case went cold, detectives continued keeping an eye on Lindemann and Pigg. In January of 1982, the men were involved in an East Charlotte altercation that left 3 people dead. Lindemann and Pigg were beaten pretty badly while they were celebrating Lindemann's birthday. It sounds like a brawl broke out. They got their asses kicked, and then these other partiers who were bikers ended up dead.
Oh my gosh.
Right? About 5 months after that, while driving home from Lindemann's bachelor party, there was a motorcycle crash. This somehow turned into a wild melee in which 2 men were shot and 1 was fatally wounded. Pigg was arrested for wrestling a gun away from a police officer at the scene, while Lindemann was arrested for assaulting an officer.
Man, this sounds like a lot. I mean, really, there's a lot going on.
Just chaos.
Yeah.
Everywhere these guys go, it sounds like just fucking chaos. Eventually, Lindemann moved to Texas with his wife and had a son. He divorced in July of 1990. It was about 3 months later that he was driving in a Corvette when he made what they described in the newspaper as a Batman move in the car.
Okay.
It caused him to flip, wrecked the vehicle, it turned upside down, and he was lodged in a ditch filled with water. He ultimately drowned to death.
Oh my goodness.
Right? Pigg was arrested in 1988, caught with 30 pounds of marijuana and semi-automatic weapons. He seemed to leave behind the criminal lifestyle after he served some time by opening a welding business, which he operated for 18 years. He died in 2007 from liver issues. When Pigg passed, Easy Rider magazine published a photo of the wake at Dirty Dan's Sports Bar on Central Avenue in Charlotte.
So, I mean, these guys are like known nationwide, kind of, right? It seems.
I mean, I guess they're just really well known in the biker community.
Yeah, that's what I meant, I guess.
All right. A break finally came in the case when Charlotte Police Detective Tim Jolly, who was part of the Violent Crimes Task Force, reopened the case. After speaking to witnesses again, he discovered that Lindemann and Pigg had boasted about their involvement in the mass murder. The target was Terrible Terry Henderson. Lindemann and Pigg knew about the items at the crime scene that only assailants could describe. These interviews were taken to the district attorney, who ultimately decided to close the case. Both suspects were dead and never officially charged.
Oh, Wow.
Now, Lindemann's brother, who still resides in Texas, does not believe his brother was involved, and he's very upset that police are soiling his brother's name.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of tricky. From the perspective of law enforcement, they've had a strong suspicion that the Lindemann and Pig were involved in it. They had some good reasoning.
Right off the bat.
Some good motives in their mind to have done this. And these would be, Lindemann would have intimate knowledge of who's in the club or not in the clubhouse, who's in jail, whether or not, they're enforcers or at full capacity. Because it's not like you just go out, 2 or 3 of your badass guys get locked up. You don't just go get more people. I mean, these are trusted members of your club. And so it makes sense. But at the same time, from the family members, his brother's perspective, they never brought official charges. And so it was never, I guess you could look at like if you never charged them or never made this.
Innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah, he's innocent until proven guilty. And you're kind of just maybe wrapping this up because you never could figure it out kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Putting it on my dead brother.
Well, to kind of further what you were saying in the beginning, also with the guard dogs, Lindemann was known. He'd been to the house and the dogs likely recognized him.
Yeah, because you know what a prospect would be doing? Taking care of the dogs, feeding
shoveling
them.
shit.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right. Flamont, the Outlaw club president at the time, was eventually busted by the FBI during an undercover sting operation known as Operation Countervail. An FBI agent named Lance Emery was able to infiltrate the organization for 2 years. Flamont was arrested for cocaine and marijuana possession, ended up serving 2 years in prison. He was released and decided to go straight, taking a job with Harley Davidson as a mechanic. He died in 2017 in a motorcycle crash. I believe he was 70 years old when he passed. Though some clubs still exist in the area, they're not nearly the violent criminal enterprise they once were. Now the bikers are, they're all considered kind of old bikers, and they're dead or dying off, the ones that had been involved in these criminal kinds of activities.
Yeah, that makes sense because in this younger generation, just riding a bike, period's not something they're really into.
Well, because nobody can afford a damn bike.
Well, there's that.
Come on. I don't know anybody who's like, hey, I can go out and buy this $30,000 Harley. Most people I know is just trying to keep the lights on. Let's be honest.
No, it's true. But at the same time, I don't think they have all that much interest in that type of lifestyle either.
Yeah, I mean, I know some younger, and I say younger, I mean folks like our age who are kind of into bikes. And, I have some friends who are pretty heavily into the biker community.
Right. But we're in our 40s.
Exactly. I mean, we're not little spring chicks or dirty pigeons or whatever you want to call us.
I would have guessed a lot less 20-year-olds or 25-year-olds are maybe into this lifestyle. And hey, let's be honest, these guys are called, these guys and girls, because the women would kick ass too, were called 1%ers for a reason, right?
Exclusive group. But their legends continue, such as the story of a man named Fats Noodleick, who was shot off his bike. As the folklore goes, his corpse was kidnapped from the mortuary and taken to a 3-day party, like a wake party. He was strapped into a chair with a beer in his hand. Now, no one has ever confirmed or denied this tale.
See, you're right. This very easily could have been a movie, a Hollywood movie. Because this is just these characters, their names, their lifestyles, some of the things that have been attributed to them having done. I mean, it's like you can't make this up. Whether
the Noodleick story is true or not, I mean, the thought of strapping a dead man, Weekend Bernie, blah, 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 Weekend at Bernie style, in a chair with a damn beer in his hand, and y'all are fucking partying around him and probably like bringing him over a line of Coke and be like, hey, buddy, this is for you, and snorting it and shit. I mean, that's a fucking badass story, let's be honest.
It is.
I hope when I die, you guys will bring me home and put me in some comfy clothes and pile me up with some Oreos on the couch.
Honey, I will strap you into that comfy podcast chair you have right there, and we will do an episode, and I will keep asking for your comments. And obviously, you're likely not going to comment, But, that's the way it's going to happen.
Don't mind the leakage from my corpse.
Well, it's true.
Thank you.
And I want to be post-embalmed, if it can be.
No.
You want?
No, I want to be like Gigi Allen style. I want to be stanking up in here.
Oh, so you want to be breaking down as I try to make one last episode of Mountain Murders.
Yes.
And I can tell you, this episode's not going to be very clear. The details will be limited.
It's going to be a lot of misinformation.
Yep.
Dylan's going to get the names wrong.
Probably.
The dates. Be a very inaccurate tale. But it'll be fun. People
It'll be
will enjoy
sweet.
it, Dylan.
People will still cry while they listen to it because it'll be very sweet.
Lance Emery, the undercover FBI agent who rode with the Outlaws for nearly 2 years, said, quote, "They were more like a brotherhood and a real family, and that the violence was secondary to that."
Well, I mean, that's the basis of gangs interchange out with the mentality of a cult. They love bomb you. You have disenfranchised youth typically, or just people who never had any family or structure or someone that cares about them, and you bring them into the fold. And then now they do feel that love and inclusion, and now they're willing to do anything for you. So, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, I could see someone who was near them, near to these people, thinking that, they were just a family of misfits who happened to run guns and, beat women when they didn't want a prostitute.
Yeah.
Comes with the territory.
I feel like I want to start a gang of women, and we force our husbands to prostitute and bring us the money.
Okay.
So,
Well,
you better get in there and shave your balls.
okay. I will.
Resources were primarily news articles published over the past 40 years by the Charlotte Observer newspaper, along with other newspaper articles. I was very surprised. I did not find a book about this crime.
This is crazy.
Did not find a documentary. And I don't know why. This is a fucking, wild ass story. I'm glad we were telling it.
Heather, you need to self-publish this book.
Yeah, I do.
Oh my goodness.
Start a Kickstarter.
Are you serious that you literally could not find any book of any notoriety?
I did discover one book.
Okay.
I downloaded the damn thing, and it briefly mentioned this on one page.
What?
It was part of a Hell's Angels book.
Okay.
Barely mentioned this story. I mean, there's a paragraph.
I'm really surprised because this is a pretty huge, incredible story.
Well, I guess I need to get to work writing my first screenplay, Dylan.
Yeah, let's do it. I want to play Waterhead.
Okay.
I got the head
well,
for
no,
it.
he's 22.
Well, that's okay.
You can just play Fats Noodleick, the guy strapped to the chair.
Okay.
With no beer, because that seems appropriate.
If people filmed me with the right film, they would think I'm dead. I look sallow.
I just
that a
imagine
word?
strapping the beer in your hand, too.
Yeah, well, I already have a beer.
I mean, we don't even really have to strap it down.
All we need is a strap.
You're already attached. It's like, have you ever seen the film Drop Dead Gorgeous with Ellen Barkin and what's her name, Kirsten Dunst? It's like a
Is it a Freaky Friday situation?
No, it's like a mockumentary about a
Okay.
beauty pageant.
Oh.
And the Ellen Barkin character, their single wide gets blown up, and she's kind of like the cigarette mom.
Okay.
Right? And so her house gets blown up, and the Michelob Light she's drinking or whatever is permanently attached in her hand for the remainder of the film.
That's funny.
As far as those kind of mockumentary movies go, of course, This Is Spinal Tap is my absolute favorite, but Drop Dead Gorgeous, Kirstie Alley is in it. What's her name? Vanessa. Is her name Vanessa? The one that was married to Charlie Sheen. Denise.
Why
do I call her Vanessa?
Denise Richards.
She's in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, young Denise Richards did things to me.
I bet she did.
Goodness,
Well,
she did things to you too.
Well, she was hot as hell. Yeah, of course
She's pretty
did.
hot.
She was smoking hot.
Yeah.
I mean, Wild Things was a shit movie. I think people just tuned into watching Nev Campbell wet
Her
making out.
when I seen that she got with Charlie Sheen, I'm just like, girl, why?
Ugh.
You're truly beautiful.
We said today's episode was going to be really sleazy,
Yeah.
and now we're just bringing it home.
Well, speaking of Charlie Sheen, that's a great segue. There was a movie that he's in. I cannot remember the title of it, but he actually plays an undercover cop who goes under into biker gangs out in the West, the California, Nevada desert area.
Right.
And he goes on, and I'm pretty sure it's based on a true story. And he goes under for years, for a very long time, to the point where he's kind of losing himself. That line of, hey, I'm just he's kind of changing for the worse.
Beyond the Law.
That's it.
1993.
Yeah, and that's actually a pretty good movie. And I'm fairly certain that it's based on the true life experience of an FBI agent. So, yeah.
Well, those undercover agents, they are so deeply rooted in some of these situations that, from what I understand, having seen like the Gangland series on Nat Geo and many of the other documentaries and books and interviews, they do kind of end up being conflicted. They have a lot of confusion because they know they're law enforcement, but they do develop a bonds with these folks.
Emotional
and they
connections.
Do learn to see them as like a brother or something. That they do end up kind of losing a sense of self.
Right.
And having to kind of like get their shit together.
Now, these cops, women and men that go under deep cover for, months or year or plus, that's just psychologically and keeping your life separate. If you did have a family who you sneak around and go home to or whatever. I mean, I just can't even imagine the mental fortitude to operate under those conditions.
Definitely takes a unique kind of person.
Very much so.
You have to be a fucking good actor.
And you're going to have to do things. You're not going to get that deep without doing illegal activities or drugs, right?
See some things, do some shit.
That's right.
Yeah.
You'd have to go manage a massage parlor near the airport.
I'm sure that's the job you would absolutely not want to do.
No.
Dylan would definitely not want to be there.
It's disgusting. And I mean, just the whole concept of rubbing people's muscles a lot with oils.
I'm sure you would not want anything put in your face.
No.
You don't want to see it. You would be like, please cover up.
Stop.
You have to take off that sexy lingerie and wear a turtleneck. I'm deeply offended.
We have new uniforms coming from the uniform company. It's going to be like just have your like the mechanic
it's like
shirt.
Some scrubs.
It's like a mechanic shirt with the name tag on it. We're getting away from the sexy, revealing clothing. I mean, I really don't know what's going on here.
Yep.
And that's me running a male massage parlor.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
Well, Dylan, that has been the story of the Charlotte Outlaws motorcycle massacre. I hope everyone enjoyed it. It's a kind of a different type of story for us. I just thought it would be a kind of a fun story. Not that murder is fun, but kind of a fun story to cover.
Well, I know you've been excited all week plus covering that and researching this, and I think it was a great story. And it's a scary thing for a community to have to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, maybe fun wasn't the right word.
Well, I don't know. I guess it's such a big story, and there's so much to it. Fun's not the right word.
I just like all the, the fighting and I don't know.
Oh my God.
It's just kind of sleazy.
I'm not even going to say what was going through
Sex and drugs and rock and roll.
Yeah, these big, burly, bearded men who kick ass and take names.
Ooh, I'm going to need a cold shower.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I'm going to get Heather cooled down.
If you have any feedback, you can always email us at mountainmurderspodcast@gmail.com. We've asked you before, and we'll ask you again. If you have access to YouTube, go give us a follow, subscribe to our YouTube channel, even if you don't listen to the podcast via YouTube. It helps us out. And we have created a TikTok account. We're trying to rock over there. So make sure you give us a follow if you're on TikTok. We have some ghost stories, some silly videos.
Oh my God, I'm glad you deleted that one.
Uniquely Appalachian information, superstitions, and that kind of thing. So it might be right up your alley. Check it out. We will be back on Wednesday with our midweek show. Dylan, do you have anything left to say?
Bye.